Hello, hello, everybody, and welcome to our first breakout session of Fall Tice. This session is your guide to aligning training programs with business goals. This is going to be a collaborative session, so we do invite you to turn on your cameras and use that raise hand feature if you have any questions during the session. At this point, I'm going to pass things off to Dr. Amy Duvernay with Training Industry, who's going to introduce the rest of our panel and get us started.
Hello, everyone. So glad to see so many faces here for our session and very, very excited to have an amazing panel here to talk to us about aligning our training programs to business goals. Thank you, Elizabeth, for the great intro. So in this session, we hope to accomplish two goals. First, we want to explain a helpful model that you can use to achieve greater strategic alignment between your training program offerings and your company or your business's goals. The second is that we want to demonstrate how that model can be applied in real world scenarios and really kind of talk about the application. So to do that, we've asked 4 certified professionals in training management to speak about their own experiences applying this model in their own organizations. So I will go ahead and introduce the panel. So as Elizabeth said, I'm Amy Duvernay. I am the Director of Training and Development here at Training Industry. I run our courses, our certification programs, and oversee kind of the development as well as evaluation and all the processes related to that. Next up, we have Andrew Kajewski, who is the Director of Global Training and Development at EnerSys. Drew, thank you for joining us. We also have Haneen Ghanam, who is the Manager of Learning and Development at Southwest Food Service Excellence. Haneen, welcome. Following Haneen, we have Janessa Jacobs, and she's the Director of Training for Property Management at Second Avenue, and we are thrilled to have you here, Janessa. And then last but not least, we have Robert Johnson. He is the Global Senior Manager of Project Management Training at Thermo Fisher Scientific. Robert, really glad to have you here today. So again, thanks to everyone for joining us. As I mentioned, a goal of this session is to review a model from our CPTM program, and that model will help you with portfolio rationalization, as well as with course development. So in a moment, I'm going to review the model, but first, I just want to give a quick definition for those who may be a little newer to the training industry. So portfolio rationalization is an exercise for evaluating courses within your training curriculum to determine which courses are useful and valued by the business and which ones are not. Training portfolios often become unwieldy, and it's important to actively manage them through this process of rationalization. So in light of that, we do have a poll question for you. What do you find most challenging when you're managing your company's L&D portfolio? Is it your stakeholders? Maybe they each believe their programs are really critical or necessary. It could be process, so finding time to systematically review your portfolio or your training programs. Perhaps the breadth and scope is just overwhelming because there are so many programs. And maybe you don't have challenges with portfolio management. So I'll pause, and Elizabeth, you tell me when we're ready.
All right. Everybody, go ahead and sound off on this first poll question. We'll give you about 5 more seconds to do so. What do you find most challenging when managing your company's L&D portfolio? All right, let's wrap it up in 3, 2, and 1. Here is what everyone has to say.
Okay, pretty even split there. So stakeholders, process, and breadth. And no one said that it is easy. No, it's not, and that's okay. It's not going to be an easy process, but hopefully this model and this kind of technique that we're about to review is going to help you simplify some of that process and ease some of the process and the pressure across each of those 3 challenges. So without further ado, here is our model. So on the screen, you see the Portfolio Rationalization Model. This model is a simple tool for evaluating your training organization's training course portfolio. You can use this when rationalizing your training portfolio, but you can also use it to help identify the best resources for developing training programs. So there are a few questions you might answer using this model. You might be wondering whether a course should be continued and you should keep it in your portfolio, or it's time to retire it. You might use the model to determine whether you should develop the program in-house, or maybe you want to source it and buy some off-the-shelf content. You can also use the model to understand whether it's really worth investing in the resources to deliver it through more formal means, or whether it should really be delivered in an informal fashion. And I'll go over kind of how you get to that decision process in a second. Each of these questions has kind of at the heart of it a question that relates to how many resources you should dedicate to each program within your portfolio. We often have limited resources as training professionals, and this is meant to help us determine how to prioritize our resources and use them wisely across the portfolio. So the model evaluates training programs using two critical factors. You can see on the x-axis, we have strategic importance. This relates to how aligned the course is with your organization's objectives and business goals. And then on the y-axis, we have proprietary content. So this is the level of information that is really unique to your organization that's contained within the course. And to use the model is actually fairly simple. There are 3 steps. First, you want to obtain ratings of your training courses or programs or initiatives on both of those factors. So you want to take a course, let's say a leadership development course, and give it a rating related to from 1 to 10 related to how strategically important it is, and from 1 to 10 related to how proprietary the course is. And you can get those ratings from a couple of different techniques. You could ask your stakeholders to rate the course. So how important is it on a scale of 1 to 10, and how proprietary is it? You could ask your training team. So try to collect multiple ratings from the folks in your training organization who might have different perspectives to bring. Or you could ask yourself. I mean, it at least gives you something to kind of consider the course across, and you can add some ratings to that program based on that. Once you have the ratings, you can plot them on these axes, right? So if they get like a 7 in strategic importance and a 7 in proprietary content, then they're probably going to be in this top quadrant over here, the top right quadrant. So you use that to figure out where they fall on the axis, and each of these quadrants actually carries with it a set of recommendations. So I'll review those now. Courses that you find to be high in strategic value and high in proprietary content fall in this top quadrant right here. These are courses that you definitely want to retain in your training portfolio. And if you're trying to determine where to invest your resources to update your programs, these are courses that are really strong candidates for frequent updating, especially if the content changes frequently. If you're considering adding a new program that falls into this quadrant, then it's a good idea to consider custom development. Maybe you do that custom development in-house, maybe you work with a vendor partner, but the point is that it is worth the investment to make that use that customized programming, because it is high in proprietary value or proprietary information, meaning that probably not going to find something that addresses this off the shelf, and yet it is really strongly related to your business goals, so it's probably pretty important. The next quadrant, so if we just go kind of down, we see that if it's low in proprietary content but high in strategic importance, this is a great candidate to source courses. So these kinds of courses probably should not be developed in-house. It's very likely that there's something that's going to be more effective and less expensive as far as resource load off the shelf that you purchase. But it is, because it's high in strategic importance, worth that investment. And if you're trying to decide whether or not to keep the course because it's high in that strategic importance, it's probably worth retaining. Okay, so then if we move to our left top, we've got our high in proprietary content, but low in strategic importance. So this is courses that, definitely speak to the way we do things within our organization, but are maybe not directly tied to the main business objectives that the company has set. In this case, a great way to accomplish getting that proprietary information out without investing a lot of resources is to use informal means. So maybe you capture something through video or discussion boards. You're allowing folks to share out information, but not investing a ton of resources into the development of those programs. Okay, finally, we've got our bottom left quadrant. These are the courses that really don't belong in your portfolio. They're not adding strategic value, and they're not proprietary content. It seems likely that your learners can find this information elsewhere, and it's not a good use of your resources to be offering it, to be providing it, to be investing any kind of time in it. So by eliminating it from your portfolio, you're hopefully able to free up resources for courses that do offer more value. So that is our model. And our panelists each have had experience applying this model in their own organization. So I'm going to ask them each to go through and kind of share how they've used the model and provide some brief information about their company as well when they do. I will stop sharing now to do that. Okay, so first up, we have Janessa, who is going to talk to us about how she's used the model at Second Avenue. Janessa, I'll let you take it away.
Thanks so much, Amy. So, hey everyone, I'm Janessa Jacobs. I am a certified professional in training management and currently the director of training for Second Avenue, which is a property management company. And what we do is we help families to find SFR homes to rent during the current housing crisis. So previously, I worked as the director of L&D at Pinnacle Home Care, who made an impact during the pandemic to keep people out of the hospitals by getting nurses out into the field and into patient homes. I was also the former learning experience specialist at Coca-Cola Beverages Florida when they were working very closely with FEMA. So I've used this model in manufacturing, healthcare, and real estate industries because I specialize in helping executive leadership set up a strategy for their learning and development departments to give their employees a next level onboarding and learning experience very quickly. These departments usually start from nothing or a department of one or small pockets and silos that tend to run incredibly lean before organically growing into that decentralized model to centralized or even the federative models that we're seeing now. So because the organizational needs are often tied to some form of community need, we must get these departments and these employees and these strategies set up super fast and super effectively. And that's why the portfolio rationalization model is so important to my work. So we start the experience before the employee is hired. I bring the model into the scope meetings as a visual to walk my stakeholders through the skills that outline success at a company level, at a department level, and even at a job role level. And the visualization of this model has really helped my stakeholders to better align to the organizational priorities and the needs of the business or even the community that we're serving. And this has helped them to remove the nice to know and identify the need to know. So let's talk about when we're creating the role-specific training. We've used this model to identify the skills that the candidate must have prior to coming into the role. So if the skill is low on the strategic importance, it becomes a prerequisite for the position, meaning the candidate must have this prior to joining the organization. And we'll walk through a quick example. Let's talk about Microsoft skills. Show of hands if you've ever gotten a request from your company for Excel, Outlook, or Teams training. Yeah, for sure, right? So show of hands if you've ever been to the Microsoft support site. All right. And show of hands if you've got a free support system outside of the Microsoft support site. And if so, please place that in the chat because we all need a little extra support sometimes, right? Yeah, for sure. And everyone wants system training. It's there, it's free, it's online. And when I showed my stakeholders this, they were in awe and began looking for external resources so that we didn't have to manage them and can send these to the candidates prior to joining. And that did a couple of really amazing things for us. One, this created a new standard and reputation for the company. It added this exclusivity and pride to joining us, and ultimately then reduced long-term turnover because they had to work a little bit harder to join the organization. Additionally, it opened up my training budget because I'm not having to purchase these solutions. And now I can focus my time on the wildly important strategic and proprietary goals of the organization. And just by introducing this model early into our talent acquisition and training development processes, we've changed the employee learning experience even prior to hire to better foster a culture of continuous learning with us. So that's why the model has been so incredibly important to us in that pre-hire all the way through to the succession planning with my organizations. Oh, Amy, I think you're on mute.
Okay. Thank you, Janessa, for sharing that example and so much rich kind of detail there. So really appreciate it. Next up, we have Robert Johnson, who's going to talk to us a little bit about how he's used this model at Thermo Fisher Scientific. Robert, how have you applied the model?
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm Rob Johnson. I'm a global senior manager over project management training for Thermo Fisher Scientific, which is a mouthful to say. Thermo Fisher is a biopharmaceutical company. It's got about 125,000 employees worldwide, so that's a pretty big group. But I'm only responsible for the training of the project managers in a specific group, so there's about 1,400 individuals there. Now, in my role as a senior manager over there training, I'm doing strategy, design, development, implementation, everything, right? Evaluation, assessment, the whole nine. I'm also looking at onboarding, ad hoc requests, the entire L&D scope, as you know, right? I'm preaching to the choir here. I've got to do it by myself because I'm an army of one. So as you can imagine, I'm a pretty busy person. So I'm always trying to look for tools and techniques to try to help me evaluate what I'm doing and give priority to things that I should work on first. So that's where this tool comes into play, right? This portfolio rationalization model really helps me, gives me a lens of which to look at all the different things I need to prioritize and do. Now, when you're defining strategy, there's a few ways to do it. The way that we do it at my company is twofold. One, we look at what the business goals are from the leadership team. They put that out once a year, and they give us a goal tree with a few different categories, and we align our goals to those, and we build our business case for what we want to accomplish for the year. So that becomes a sort of a stake in the ground. The second thing that we've done is that we've created PM competencies, right? So project management competencies that we've determined are very critical for our project managers to do well. And underneath those competencies, there are 19 skills. And those 19 skills go from working with customers to risk management to communication, so on and so forth, right? So we look at all those things, and those skills, anything that we're doing around those skills automatically has some amount of strategic value, right? And how close they're aligned to our business, then it starts to elevate there. And I'll get a little bit more into that in a second. But what I want to first do is to share with you, before coming to Thermo Fisher, my career started off in the U.S. Navy, nuclear power program, submarine program. I did that for 8 years, and it is there where the idea of training and what it can mean, because that's how we got home to our family, right? Very dangerous area to be in, and it was near and dear to my heart, and it planted something inside of me how important training is, and being able to share that with others, and that love of that came from there. As I moved through my career, I've worked in a lot of different industries, Amazon and nuclear fuel places. I've gone up to the ranks to training manager. I've been able to see learning from a lot of different perspectives, from needing it to giving it. And in all that entire realm, I had not come across a model like the one here, right? The portfolio rationalization model. And I could think back over my career how many times I could have used it, and it could have definitely helped me out in sorting out the things that I needed to sort out. So coming full circle at Thermo Fisher, where I'm at now as a global manager, I'm under a group called the community of practice, project management community of practice that just got stood up as a strategic initiative. So everything we do is attached to strategy. In that group, we use these competencies to really try to harmonize and standardize best practices across the network for our project managers, which are the nexus of business. They're the nexus of everything that we can do well and communicating to internal clients and external clients. So with that, how do I use it, right? What's a specific example? So of the 19 skills that I shared with you, I'm going to pick one. Let's say risk management. That is something that came up and bubbled up to the surface. Our senior leadership said this is something we need to be great at because it tells us if we're meeting our milestones. It definitely colors that relationship with the customer, making sure we're communicating properly and all these things. So it's very, very important to our organization. But risk management, I've had to do that across my career, seemed like it wasn't very proprietary, right? There's some common practices of risk management and approaches. So we originally evaluated it as being high strategic, low proprietary, which meant source, right? So I said, okay, we'll go to a third party and let's pilot a course. I had some PMs and some senior PM managers part of that process, that pilot process, and L&D being iterative as it is, as you all know, when we got that course, we looked at those fundamentals, we said, this does not connect us to our business and how we actually manage risk. It's good fundamentals, but how does it connect to our tools and technology, which then elevated it and its proprietary pieces that we needed to add to it, which ended up meaning that I needed to customize it. So I had to pull in the fundamentals, but then I had to look at our tools and technology and how we're implementing it and merge those together to create that course, right? So that is just one example of how we've done it with a specific course. I'm evaluating different requests along the way, but going forward, we are kind of rolling out a lot of things in the strategic initiative. And one of those things that we're rolling out is an onboarding program coming up in 2024. And it's very sophisticated and it's working over all of our divisions. And there are a lot of line items on what we think project managers need to do. The teams that I work with are pretty brilliant managers and project managers that are helping me build this content. And as they're telling me these ideas, hey, we need to make sure this is in there and this is in there, whatever it is that they feel that is really important, I'm using this model to then figure out how do we deliver that content to this new hire, right? Is it going to be a third-party course? Like, if it's something on difficult conversations, well, that's something you can easily source from outside. That's an easy one. Boom, done. I don't have to devote really too much time and energy to that. Is it something with how we manage a particular project in a particular area? Maybe we need to develop that on our own. And so I'm walking through that content, being an army of one, trying to make sure I'm putting my energy where I need to, and some of those things that I'm not going to work on at all, right? Because they're not highly strategic, they're not highly proprietary. Those are going to be in the back burner if we ever get to it. And that's, I guess, in a nutshell, how I'm using the model at Thermo Fisher Scientific.
Robert, thank you. That was really great. Appreciate you sharing that example. All right, so next we have Drew, who is going to tell us about how he's been applying the model.
Thanks so much, Amy. Just a shout out to the other panelists. I'm taking some notes over here as well because I'm learning things as we're going along. So thanks, everybody. My name is Drew Krajewski. I am a certified professional in training management and the director of global training and development for a company called Panelists. We are a multinational industrial battery manufacturer and distributor. Our employees work in 34 different countries and we speak 17 different languages. We have just under 11,000 employees worldwide. Our department, the Global EnerSys Academy, is responsible essentially for all employee training, really. We do compliance, safety, onboarding, you name it, we're kind of doing it. We're a relatively small team of about 18, and while we are currently working under a federated model, our team recently took responsibility for training at a number of our manufacturing facilities, so we will be moving more towards a centralized model over the next 6 months or so. Our stakeholders vary a little bit, but we work very closely with our HR teams. I report into the Chief HR Officer. We work very closely with our legal team, with a group that we call the EnerSys Operating System, which is kind kind of our version of lean manufacturing and Six Sigma kind of melded together. We work very close with our sustainability department, as well as environmental health and safety teams. All of this stuff very important, as you can imagine. Batteries, large industrial batteries, they weigh a lot. There's a lot of lead, which is also very hazardous. There's a lot of sulfuric acid. There's fork trucks all over the place. It's a hazardous place to work. For myself, I've been an L&D professional since 1997. I've held a variety of positions, both as an individual contributor and as a manager/leader. I achieved my CPTM in December of 2021 after one of my team members became certified and just raved about the program. So was very keen to get myself certified as well. Can't be left behind. I first heard about portfolio rationalization from my fellow teammate, and once I achieved my CPTM, we realized that this would be a powerful tool in our strategic arsenal. One of the things that we had been doing is, as we were going through our new training requests, we're applying our own kind of homemade scorecard to these requests. And sometimes it made sense and sometimes it didn't. So this gave us an industry standard that we could apply and go back to stakeholders with. What we first did was kind of a little bit of a mistake, is I added it to our standard new training request form that's out on our intranet page. Well, I'm sure you can all imagine what happened there is that everyone rated their course needs as high on the strategic purpose side. So we kind of had to remove that a little bit. So with that in mind, we removed it from the new training request and put it into what our more in-depth learning needs analysis form. So then once we assign a developer to a project, they meet with the subject matter expert, conduct a fairly in-depth conversation about the project. Once the outcomes of the rating of both strategic importance and proprietary information is calculated, we kind of give it a score from there. And then again, oops, I'm wrong side. We're applying it to the chart, as you can see behind us. We created a kind of scoring rubric for this so that the developers are pretty consistent in their rating. And then we use that combined score to help us with prioritizing our development. As I said, we're a small team, 18 among 11,000, so we do need some sort of prioritization model. Additionally, we now have talking points that we can go back to course sponsors and subject matter experts and our stakeholders with specific reasoning on why a project might be on hold or has a lower priority rating from us than other projects might have. In addition to using this for our forward-looking projects, we also took a look at our current portfolio of courses and applied the model to existing courses that are in our LMS. As a part of our regular quarterly scorecard, we track the number of completions for our homegrown courses in our LMS. For the previous quarter, we run on a fiscal year basis. So for April, May, and June of this past year, we had 49,569 completions among 5,966 participants. In addition to that, we have 750 courses and performance support tools loaded up into the LMS. Those are going to require attention over time. Policies change, people change, positions change. The entire organization realigned from a regional model to a line of business model a couple of years ago. So we needed to have some sort of prioritization to go ahead and take a look at the courses that currently exist within our portfolio in order to be able to, in some way, shape, or form, prioritize the review of those. And this model, doing it the wrong way, this model gives us the perfect avenue to do that. In addition to those 750 custom courses, we also have a number of vendor-sourced courses that we have loaded in our LMS as well. We want our non-compulsory training offerings to be to the point and not overwhelming. So if someone is searching for an Excel course or for project management communication skills, they're not getting a laundry list of courses. They've got something that's reasonably curated and to the point of what they're looking for. So reviewing all of those on a regular basis is just not something that we have time or manpower for. So what we did was we utilized our LMS administrator and an intern to review each one of the existing courses in our LMS and apply that same scorecard to them. They determined an owner for the course, and then the owners reviewed the course and assigned this score based on strategic importance and proprietary content. This allowed us to rank the courses that require our review based on that scale and immediately know which courses require our immediate attention. Let us set up a cadence for reviewing courses for policy changes, and then take a look at content updates and other required updates. So it's been a really beneficial model for us in helping us to prioritize our work.
That was wonderful, Drew. So many good points in there. I really appreciate that. Okay, last but not least, we have Haneen, who's going to talk to us about applying the model at Southwest Food Service Excellence.
Hi, everyone. My name is Haneen Ghanam. I am the Manager of Learning and Development at SFE, or Southwest Food Service Excellence. We are a K-12 food service company. So we take over basically the food service program for our public schools throughout the United States. I'm here in Arizona. The company actually started in Arizona. That's where the headquarters are. And now we've expanded all the way to the east as far as Massachusetts. So our business is all over. I am really responsible for a little over 5,000 employees and training them. A little bit background on how I even started with SFE. I actually have a nutrition degree, and I joined SFE with the intention of just doing nutrition education for the kiddos and for the staff and doing menus. And then, with time, I started, just looking more into compliance. We are very heavily compliance-based according to the USDA, the rules and regulations they put out for us. And then I started doing internal audits. And with that came training, because I wanted to make my job easier. I started creating videos and guides and, checklists. And then creating them, but also going on site and training the staff. We all love our lunch ladies. They've been with us since we were kids, and a lot of them are, you talk to them, they're like, I've been here for 30 years, 40 years, and things have changed. So training is very necessary. And then from there, we really never had like an official actual training department. And this past year, company decided, hey, we want to start building an official training department. And I took on that role. I am a one person, just like probably many of you on here are, and responsible to really building this department. But with that, I've inherited content, right? Content that, people at different times created. And looking at that library when I first started, I was like, oh my God, what do I do? What do I keep? What do I get rid of? What do I update? And like many of you here mentioned today, everyone thinks that their training is important. So I had the opportunity of doing the CPTM program this past year and stumbling upon this tool. And I thought, okay, maybe I could use this. And so that's how I'm using this tool to make decisions, honestly, and putting a plan, because that list is enormous of content. And when we look at it, probably a huge percentage is outdated. So now it's like, do I just take it and update it, or can I, have a better strategy? So let me give you an example. So we are a food service company, right? One of our biggest goals is food quality. We do a lot of scratch cooking. Training videos like, how do you make Spanish rice? How do you, make their specialty pizza? What are the techniques? This is really high proprietary, and it's strategic. This is definitely in the custom, right? The custom bracket. We're keeping it, and we'll probably keep updating as the recipes keep updating. As I mentioned, Excel. Oh my God, I get emails every day. Okay, do you have a course about Excel? Guess what? It's not going to be custom. Here's some links. Go ahead and familiarize yourself with Excel. Maybe ask your boss to take a course or something like that. I'm not going to, again, there's not enough time in the world for me to create a single thing. For example, I received a request from an older leader, wise for sure. He literally came to me and said, hey, Haneen, I need a training on how to communicate with Gen Z. The old me would have said, sure. And I would have gotten right onto it and spent countless hours trying to either create something and send it to him. But with this model, let's, the questions to myself. Are you able to? I see Amy kind of. Hello?
Hi, Hi, Nadine. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're going in and out a little bit.
Okay, sorry.
It's okay.
Can you hear me now? Is it better? Okay, sorry about that. So, like I was saying, the older me, I would have gotten right onto it and started spending countless hours on creating a custom training for him. But with this tool, I was like, okay, ask myself the question, is this really proprietary? Is this really needed right now? How many people have this problem? Is it something that I could allocate to a different department like HR and have them find, maybe a counselor or sessions, or maybe even recruit a couple of Gen Z, employees that we have, and they could, project their expertise on better communication. So this actually has helped me really just prioritize and make decisions. Another thing that this has come really helpful in is taking off some decision fatigue, and also having that plan. And when my boss also comes to me, hey, what are you working on? I'm working on this quadrant first, and this one at the end. And it's just have been very clear and set. How I plan to use this in the future is actually, as you all know, you always are going to get requests, is at the next leadership meeting, I'm going to have this model. I'm going to explain it just like Amy did. And I'm going to give the leaders the list that they've come up with, that they've asked me to create, and their direct reports and their employees asked me to create, and have them plug it in. And so they're going to be plugging in theirs, but also the requests that came from others. And I'm going to try to see where the connections are and really put a plan on what, where does the priority take. And this will actually help me in presenting these results in an unbiased, right? I didn't pick it. They did. I didn't make the decision. Leadership did, according to goals for the business that I might not be aware of. And that takes the bias out, that takes the decision fatigue out, and that also brings all the departments together. Like, again, like I'm by myself, so how do I even spread the word or, make it clear on where we're headed or what we're working on? Well, all the departments are now together. So that's also has helped the cross collaboration. And hopefully, not everyone is going to have theirs in custom, hopefully. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Janine. I really appreciate all of you taking the time to share your examples. These were really rich, great examples of using the model. It's not a one size fits all. It's definitely something that you can kind of take and apply depending on your own context in various ways. So this was really great. I think we have one more poll question before we open it up for Q&A. Okay, so which of the following ways are you most likely to use this model in your own company? Will you reduce and simplify your portfolio? Will you prioritize your efforts to update programs? Maybe you'll use it to help stakeholders think through their prioritization, or you might plan to use it to determine what are the best methods for developing or delivering your program content.
All right, everyone, our final poll question for this session. Take about 5 more seconds to submit your response in your poll window. And I will wrap it up in 3, 2, 1. Here are our results.
Okay, so the big winner is prioritizing efforts to update programs. I love that. And then also using it to determine best methods for developing. Okay, wait, I'm sorry. The big winner is all of the above. And then followed by updating programs and developing new programs. So that's wonderful. I'm glad, and I hope that everybody has kind of at least thought through at least one way that you could use this model in your everyday context. With that, I think we're open for Q&A. And Elizabeth, I think you'll have some questions for us?
Absolutely. And I just dropped a note in the chat. If you do have questions you want to ask our panel, you can feel free to use the raise hand function, and we can address any questions at this time. But just to kick us off, would love to know, do you have any plans to apply the model in different ways in the future? That's to any of our panelists.
I can go. We're all looking at each other like, we didn't rehearse this. No. So yeah, I think I mentioned earlier about onboarding programs. That's a huge piece with trying to develop that. And then another program that we're rolling out is our leadership development program. And I have the feeling on a lot of that leadership development program, it's going to sit in that place of sourcing it, right? It's going to be strategic, it's going to be important, but a lot of that's not going to be proprietary. And I imagine that's going to be the case. But to guide those conversations with my leadership team with regards to, do we want to develop it in-house because we want to put our personal touch on it, to what extent there is, this will be a great way to kind of demonstrate to them. I think our value is third party or wherever that case is as we go through. So yeah, I definitely are going to be using this when we're doing our leadership development programs in 2024.
So I'll go next and just piggyback off of that. I'm currently with a startup, if you will. So there's a lot of tribal knowledge that we have, and we are finding new ways to gather content and gather a lot of these processes, best tips, tricks, and things like that. And so we've developed a bingo board where people can send in their processes, but to determine what goes on the bingo board, it's got to be high on the proprietary and high on the strategic. So we're planning on utilizing this model and communicating to them, if it falls within this area, then it can go on your bingo board.
That's great. Let's move to Melanie. I think you had your hand raised first. If you want to come off of mute and ask your question.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Drew, hello. Haneen, I believe that's your name, right? If I got it wrong, please don't kill me. But what I'd like to know is, I love the fact that you gave the stakeholders the opportunity to figure out their priorities for themselves. I am going to use that in 2024. I put a note on that. I want to know, did you do it with them to ensure that it got done, or did you send it to them, or did you give them time to complete it? How did it work? Please.
Yeah,
share.
so great question. So I don't know, maybe I got cut up at that point when I said that's actually how I'm going to be using it on the next leadership meeting. So I will be there. I will be supervising. I'm gonna let you know for sure. It'll be in breakout sessions per department. I'm going to group them, and I will make sure that if it's a one-day meeting, that I'm gonna be on the agenda first, and then that way it gives me time to analyze the results, and then gather at the end of the day with the results. If it's going to be 2-day, which most likely, then I have more time to analyze those results. But definitely, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be supervising. It's not optional.
Great. All right. Thank you very much. Thanks all.
Thanks, Haneen. All right. Next we have Jean Olson. It looks like you're going to come off of mute, or you already are off mute. So go ahead with your question.
Hi. So my question, I'm looking for some advice from all of you. It's a little bit tangential to portfolio rationalization, but I'm in an organization it's an IT organization with about 1,000 employees, but we're at the same location, same time zone. So what I'm looking for help with, guidance, is if we have a course or a program that's low in proprietariness, but high in strategic importance, like customer service, customer empathy, leadership. How do we prioritize whether having it on-site or self-paced? Like self-paced, out of the box, sourced, or on-site? Because executives and stakeholders tend to like on site, but we don't have the resources to support it. So we need to prioritize.
I'll take a stab at that, Gene, because we're a far-flung enterprise. I work at headquarters here for our organization, but there's only about 500 people that work here at headquarters. Everybody else is scattered to the four winds, literally across the globe. So we find that e-learning is by far the best way to reach those audiences when you have something that is strategically important and not necessarily high on the proprietary content list. So for example, all the compliance courses that we have here for folks in the US, whether it's harassment prevention or ADA, et cetera, those are things that we source from a vendor and put out onto our LMS so that we can ensure that everybody is, completing those courses. We send out our delinquency notices. We're beating the drum on that. And utilizing a specific vendor can also be very strategic for you because you can ask them to source that information for you. We don't go through each and every one of those. We ask them to provide us with a short list of things, and then we'll go to specific stakeholders, whether it's legal, whether it's HR, whether it's EH&S, and have them review the 4 or 5 finalists, so to speak. And that way we know we've got a really good solution that's going out to the rest of the organization.
Thank you.
I'd like to weigh in on that conversation as well. And Drew, I think that was a fantastic response. I would say that there's a lot of my energy gets spent on whether or not something should be maybe a workshop or just delivering information. You can do the Q&A and make sure they got the information. But there are a lot of elements that a workshop is where you're dealing with difficult conversations, for instance, right? Awareness training may be something asynchronous that you send out. But if you really want to practice that and guide that conversation and enhance it and have people play the role of the customer, have people play the role of the employee, and switch back and forth, then yes, virtual workshop might work for that, but not really as engaging as you would be boots on the ground. So I would balance that against how strategic that skill set is needed for those individuals, because that's very costly. And when you're looking at your budget, you can't go be everywhere all the time or have all those people off the floor and delivering that content. It's very intensive. But if that is your bread and butter, what you do, and it's emotionally charged or it needs to be interactive, then that's something that's going to get prioritized. At least that's the way I think about it.
I think that's
Thank you, Robert. That's super helpful.
Yeah, absolutely, Robert. I want to piggyback off that. We utilize a blended learning method for those things that are high on the strategic importance side, but maybe not as high on the proprietary content side. And what we specifically look for is variables. So if there is a lot of information down to the learner, it may be more basic. There aren't a lot of variables around it, such as some of these soft skills. We can then put that into an e-learning course, which is self-paced. It allows the learner to kind of get a good foundation in there. But then once we start getting into some of those variables and some of more of that intermediate learning in there, we appease our executives, our stakeholders, by then offering a virtual session or an in-person session to build off of the foundations. Now, sometimes we found that we don't have to do that, and those foundations satisfied the need already. And we do that just by measuring the program once we've done the basics to determine if that next level of introducing those variables will then help enhance what they've already learned.
That's awesome. Thank you all. We are out of time for this session, but thanks to everybody for your participation today. Thanks to Amy, Janessa, Haneen, Drew, and Robert for this wonderful session. And chat's blowing up, so lots of great conversation happening even in there. So once again, thank you. We will leave this room open for a few more minutes if you do have any remaining questions that you didn't get addressed. I think a couple of our panelists are available to hang out. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.